Welcome everyone to tonight's webinar. My name is Adam and I'll be your moderator. We're joined by Courtney Roberts from eAssist Dental Solutions, and she'll be discussing 5 tips to turn your outstanding accounts receivable into cash. Courtney is the Chief Operations Director of Onboarding for eAssist. If there are any questions, please add them into the Q&A section and we'll reply via email within 2 business days. And Henry Schein is not offering CE credit for viewing or attending this presentation live or on demand. Thanks for being with us, Courtney.
Thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate the time today. And as you can see, we are doing the 5 magic tricks that turn your outstanding AR into money in your bank account. And what I really like about this series, it kind of reminds me of that TV show that used to come on the Discovery Channel, I think. And they would take the most popular or most celebrity magicians, and they would debunk their most infamous tricks. And I remember watching those shows thinking, wow, that these magicians actually have a lot of systems and set processes on how they want to achieve their tricks. And it's sort of the same in dentistry. We all know of these offices that have such great cash flow. They always seem to be successful. And we wonder, okay, well, how are they so successful? What are they doing that's making them go above and beyond? Do they have some secret door with the government? Of course they don't, but we always wonder what those tricks are. So hopefully today, by the end of the webinar, you'll have those tricks in your battle as well, and being able to be part of that great group of dental practices that we all have heard about so much. So with that being said, my name is Courtney Roberts, and I have been in dentistry for over 15 years now. I've worked in all sorts of ranges of dentistry, and over the last 5 years, I've been with eAssist. I'm on their operations team as the Chief Director of Onboarding, and my team handles all of the new client integrations. And it's been such a fantastic journey with eAssist. And of course, with Henry Schein now being part of the family, it's a wonderful journey. And just a huge thank you, of course, to Henry Schein and letting us be here and having some time together with you all. eAssist has been working with great offices now for over 10 years and been putting so much money back into our dentist pocket. Our success consultants, they pour their heart and souls into our 2,100 dental clients and DSOs. And to date, we've collected over $8 billion in insurance revenue from companies, which is one of the many reasons why we are the nation's #1 leading platform in dental billing. And of course, with that, one of the many other reasons that we have that title is, being able to give our offices a peace of mind. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. And we understand that, peace of mind is different for one dental practice. It's completely different to another. And we try to embrace that. And we try to help fill those gaps in the needs where needed. So whether it's not your practice may need dental assistance with aging and billing, whether it's insurance credentialing, insurance verification, accounting, patient billing, or full schedule with managing your recall and retentions, we're here to help service you. So with all of that and some other ways we can service is going through today's webinar. And some of the tricks and magic tricks we want to dispel are some of the ways that we can help your practice in learning the most common roadblocks in revenue cycle management. How to create a strategy on collecting these outstanding receivables without jeopardizing patient care, and then identifying tools that help make you reach your goals. And how great will it be, the very last day of December, you go to leave the office and you get to say, hey, 2022 was our best year yet. That's going to feel amazing. So to start off with that, the first question we should ask ourselves, it would be, is your average monthly collection ratio percentage right now? And then when you think about that, and you take a note and take a look at that number, thinking, okay, where do we want to go? We still have quite a bit left of 2022 because we want this to be our most profitable year. Well, ideally, you want to be at 98%, and that's the ideal gross collection ratio. We see most of our practices report around 90 to 91%, and we want to really achieve and hit that mark for 98. And so you start to think, okay, that 8 to 9%, what does that actually look like? We have 2/3 of our dentists are leaving, that 8 to 9% on the table. And when you start to break down the numbers, you can really see what this looks like. So if we have an average office that collects, a little over 1.5 million in total revenue, 9% of that is over 135,000. And that's a pretty good amount to just throw away each year, because over the course of 30 years, that actually goes over to 4 million, that's pretty gut wrenching to lose that much money over the course of 30 years. So one of the things you want to do is come up with a roadmap and a plan to see what the revenue cycle management pipeline is like. So what we have here on this next slide is just sort of a guide of what the management cycle looks like. And of course, it begins initially with the patient schedules there in your office. And it dips down to having your front office team verify the patient's benefit plan. And then the patient comes in for their diagnosis. And I'm a big fan of prepaid dentistry. So having your patients schedule, of course, pay their estimated patient portion, and then they have the treatment rendered. And then from there, your claim is sent accurately and timely. If the claim has not been paid within 30 calendar days, following up with the insurance carrier, making sure that that claim is properly processed and payment is sent to the office. And then your administrative team is also posting payments in your practice management software. And then if a balance does remain after that payment has been posted, immediately sending that statement to your patient so that way you can get the full balance collected as quickly as possible. So in this pipeline, you will have a couple of times where there's a few breakages in the pipeline, and that's what we kind of call magic tricks. What are some ways to avoid that, and what are some of the other really successful practices doing to have a nice flow in this revenue cycle pipeline? So these are where our magic tricks start to come into play that we're going to start unfolding and exposing, if you will, for you. And the very first one is, regardless of your network participation, verifying the insurance plan benefits. And this is such an important piece, regardless of in or out of network. And this really helps give your patients that feel that you truly value them. All of our patients want to feel warm, welcome, valued inside your office. And doing that with their benefits is one of the great ways to achieve that. And we often see that things go a little bit awry when it comes to verifying the patient's policy, and claims start to be denied because of incorrect or erroneous information being sent to the insurance carriers. Maybe they had the wrong date of birth or the wrong subscriber, or maybe it was sent to what you thought was the primary plan, but should have been the secondary. So your coordination of benefits are getting a little bit out of whack. All of this does take time. It takes the energy and the knowledge to know how to do this from your front office team. Even verifying your deductibles, your frequencies. If you have a crown that's once per 5 years, and making sure that the patient is aware of that. And this can ultimately have an effect on your patient revenue, both from your insurance and your patients. This is such an important piece, again, for your patients to feel like you're truly are caring for them. You truly understand that they have a part in treatment, and giving them an accurate breakdown and verification is a piece of that. And then when you go through step number 2 is timely and accurately submitting their claim to the insurance carrier. And so this often we see the incorrect codes being submitted to our carriers. Maybe you were submitting a claim for an adult, but it should have been a child prophy, and immediately having a denial. And most of the times you'll get carriers that send a letter to the patient saying that their claim is denied due to an incorrect claim or coding being submitted, which that doesn't ever feel great either when your patients have that intel. So we want to make sure that we're giving accurate information to the insurance. Every time we submit a claim, it's clean the first time around. Making sure that we're not having delays, and that way we don't have a timely filing denial. Timely filing typically is when you have an insurance carrier say, hey, we will only process a claim 6 months from date of service, or whatever time frame that they choose. And oftentimes if something gets forgotten about, or an insurance claim wasn't batched and it sits there and then we find it, but it's been over that timely filing, then unfortunately it's a loss for the practice. And these are just one of the many things that we do see when we're starting to look at where does that 8 to 9% of lost revenue come from, and this is a very common reason. Another one here is having claims that as we mentioned, not being sent out within that time of the timely filing, but 24 hours is a really good healthy window that you want to try to achieve from the time the patient is finished with treatment to that claim is sent. You have 24 hours to make sure all the clinical documentation is there, making sure all of the initial is there, the x-rays are needed, the patient completed and successfully went through the treatment, and then that claim is sent. And then, of course, being in the know when it comes to coding, we have so many different codes with the ADA selection, and the wrong codes can be a huge issue when it comes to proper claim submission. And codes change every year. They have additions, they delete, they modify, and it really takes a huge effort of the practice and whoever's responsible for this in your office to keep up with these coding changes. But with our Henry Schein team, they offer so many great resources and able to keep your front office team updated and knowledgeable about the coding changes each and every year. That's such a huge piece, is making sure that your claims are not only billed timely, accurately, but you're also selecting the right codes when it comes to your claim submission. And then our third piece here, our most common breakdown in our cycle management pipeline, or magic trick, if you will, is fully transparent treatment plan presentations. And so making sure that you are being very transparent in the sense of fees and what the patient can expect in the event that their benefit plan paid zero. So let's say there was no benefits that were allowed towards the treatment. What's the final amount the patient could be held responsible for? But through this, you are giving them the benefits of a breakdown of what they have available that would help pay towards the coverage with their insurance policy, but making sure that they still understand that this is their plan and they have to create ownership for it. I know a lot of our practices think that we have some FBI database and we can just enter in some numbers and hit go, and we get all this intel about their policy. And unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. But sometimes you have to re-educate patients about their plans and letting them know we're here to support them. But ultimately, this is their plan that their employer selects and designed for them, and we're here to help them optimize. Basically, it's just a coupon, if you will, to help pay towards treatment. It definitely isn't like medical, but we're here to help give them a breakdown. But ultimately, the final fees of what they could be responsible for if their plan doesn't provide any benefits to pay towards services. And then we have robust clinical documentation as the most common number 4 reason that you may have a breakage in your cycle or revenue management pipeline, and a number 4 myth buster here. And what I love about this is kind of your level of documentation, and people don't realize how much documentation is influential in getting your claims processed correctly and cleanly the first time around. So if you take a moment to look at your process, how things are being entered in your software, what type of data is being collected, and what sort of radiographs you're collecting. If you look at your systems, do you feel that that is enough for an insurance claim coordinator to send out to the insurance for it to be properly processed the first time around? And I'll give you some tips and suggestions on what that could look like as far as your systems in here in just a minute. But with your documentation, a fantastic did you know here on the side is making sure that you have comprehensive documentation from the very beginning, even during that initial phone call. So if a patient calls in and says something like, I have this terrible toothache, I've been up all night, making sure that that's documented, it's scanned in, and it can always be referenced, especially when it comes to coding. If there's limitations about emergency treatment, you'll be able to have that data to back it up. Or, heaven forbid, a lawsuit ever comes forward. The more that you have, the easier those situations will be. And my most favorite tip here is the intraoral photos. That's the number 1, I think, most influential piece clinical-wise that insurance carriers use to win over your appeals, to process your claims cleanly. And that's pretty much your secret sauce, if you will, your abracadabra moment when it comes to your claims, is those intraoral photos and making sure they're accurately labeled, and especially when submitting them over, so that way the carrier knows exactly what they're looking at. Your intraoral photos are going to be the most helpful and resourceful tool that you have there in your practice when you're trying to get the proper claim submission, the proper title that you have for your claims. And then so here's a fantastic resource that our offices love to use, and it's just the acronym SOAP, which stands for Subjective, Objective, Assessment, and Plan. And this is basically the same 4 points that dental claim review consultants will look at on each claim to make sure that it meets these 4 points. So if you have this information already documented in your practice management software, you include this with your claims, the success and the percent of you getting your claims processed cleanly, it's astronomically high. And it kind of that old days, phrase of if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. So to cover your subjective piece here is the patient's chief complaint as communicated directly by the patients. Insurance carriers love to see quotes, saying that the patient felt, it was up all night, it had throbbing pain sensation. And making sure this is a direct line from the patient. And maybe you can even add, they pointed to the upper left side of their mouth. And maybe you could have a scale of 1 to 10, the patient rated his pain as a 10, with 10 being the most severe. And then of course, your objective analysis of the patient, the vital signs, examination findings, any swelling, any type of pus pockets, things like that. And then what you were able to find radiographically as well. And then your assessment of the diagnosis, and then the reasoning behind your diagnosis. If there's something with pulp vitality, you have some necrotic pulp, all of that should be there in your assessment and that piece in your software. And then your treatment plan, how you plan to address the patient's concern and how it's going to be the most optimal treatment plan and for them to be have the most successful oral health. So all these pieces combined with only your SOAP templates, your clinical documentation that includes the radiographs, all of that, and your intraorals. This is pretty much your magic sauce to getting your claims processed and you receiving every penny that you're rightfully owed. That 9% starts to stack up pretty quickly when you start to find all the ways that insurance is sort of cut you down a little bit on some money that you're owed. And your documentation and being so strong in what you send over to the insurance is a huge factor in that. And then my favorite one of these pieces and the final breakage of your revenue cycle pipeline, if you will, is knowing when and how to appeal a claim. So let's say you have a few denials. It could be something like a rejected claim. Maybe your clearinghouse picked it back because it was something that they can't process. And a lot of times the claim maybe just gets sent several times again and hoping maybe it was just an error or just a glitch and it gets resent, but that isn't the case. So when you do have a rejected claim, doing some investigation to see if it was something with maybe the payer ID was wrong. Maybe it's the wrong state that it was sent to. It could be something simply as the wrong subscriber was listed. It should have been the spouse, but the patient was listed. And that takes a little bit of investigative work, but making sure that you're not delaying this claim and sending it over and over just for it to be rejected over and over, which delays cycle time. It delays any patient portion if they owe, and then ultimately it just delays income and for your practice. Another common reason that we see that isn't denied and it's just sort of accepted as zero payment is when a procedure is not allowed. And maybe the carrier is saying that it doesn't qualify for reimbursement per the policy guidelines. And there's always an option though to an appeal for a downgrade or for another alternative code to be processed. And that actually is taken into consideration and reprocessed quite frequently. So knowing what codes could be applicable for a alternative benefit and what would be required for that to happen and the required attachments for that appeal to go through. It does take time, of course, but it is absolutely a possibility. And it's something that insurance carriers often take into consideration with a denied procedure. Or you could have situations where the entire claim was denied. Maybe that it says simply, we do not qualify for reimbursement. It could be maybe frequency. You say you had a cleaning, but it's once every 6 months, but yours was 2 days, before that cutoff date. A lot of times carriers will consider payment through an appeal. And if you go through the system and, writing the correct narrative in the right format with the right information saying, hey, this is what happened. Here's the dates of service. It was only X amount of hours short of the policy. We would really appreciate a second review of benefits to see if we can have an additional determination be allowed. And believe it or not, you actually will be surprised how many carriers will consider a claim for benefits if they're just a few days short of certain frequency limitations. And I love this did you know here to the side, which is, approximately 33% of denied claims are not sent over for a review by a lot of practices that we surveyed. So, 33% of those claims that are denied, they just get written off and just are taken into $0, and that's the final say. And that's a lot of money being left on the table unnecessarily. And with ESS, we're here to fight for every penny that you're rightfully owed. And a lot of times we have offices ask, well, I'm not quite sure why it's not being done by my front office team. If it's available, why isn't it being taken care of, or what's the better system for them? And to get to the nucleus of that problem is it is very time consumption, if you will, to do this process for your front office team. And it's on average, it's 43 minutes on hold now for an insurance company per claim. That's a significant amount of time that has to be dedicated for you to truly get every penny that your practice deserves. And also too, your front office team, a lot of the times their skills are part of other reasons why the practice is successful. They're there for customer service. They're there to build your practice through relationships, through knowledge, and to make your patients feel warm, welcome, and valued. And being on hold for 43 minutes doesn't really do justice to all of the reasons that you've hired them, all the perks that they bring on. There's so many other ways that you could use their talents within the office, except they're on hold for a majority of their day trying to appeal a denied x-ray that should have been paid, right? It's payable, but what else have you lost to get that, if that makes sense? And that's a hard balance, and we understand that. And one of the other things here when it comes to reasons why payments are delayed is the frequency in which claims should be followed up on. I mentioned earlier that every 30 days a claim is sent and it's been past 30 calendar days, we should be following up. And then from there, every 2 weeks, every 14 days, a claim should be followed up on to see where it is in the reprocessing phase. So that's a lot of time. If you have one claim and it went through, it needs a correction and you sent it and you're waiting 2 weeks or calling again, waiting another 2 weeks, trying to figure out where it is. Every time you're calling, it's over 30 to 40 minutes. That's a lot of time invested on a single claim. Or the alternative could be just letting that money sit on the table and you lose out, which is not very, very desiring either. So this is all a huge piece in the struggles that we see within our practices. And that's really come, to where we are to help offices grow and be able to get every single dollar that's on the table for them. Which of course is what we bring you here with the peace of mind. And, we understand there's just 24 hours available in a day. And we often have to just ask ourselves the question, what's important? What do we want to utilize our time and our energy on? But as dentistry has grown and as our industry has grown, it's no longer, what do we sacrifice? It's now what can we outsource? And being able to provide that from eAssist it's a huge benefit for our industry and for our offices. I think of like Michael Phelps. He was a fantastic, talented athlete, and I'm sure he spent so much time in the pool and in the workout room. But it was also important what he ate, right, and his meals and his nutrition, and counting his carbs and fats and things like that. But of course, Michael Phelps doesn't have time to cook every single meal that he has, right? He doesn't have the time to sit there and invest, and he has so many other things that require just as much, and if not as important, attention. So he outsources that to chefs, right? And he trusts a group of people that are qualified and that are experts to take care of him and what he needs so he can be successful and spend his energy in other pieces to be successful. So I think of that every now and then, and what eAssist can be for our dental practices. So with that, I do have a couple of pieces here at the end, and that's just, of course, with our webinars with Henry Schein. We're so grateful to be with. They will be sending you an email with the links, and then we also have their website as well for other webinars if you're ever interested in checking out the full library of what's on demand and what's available. But I appreciate everyone's time today. I know how busy everyone is. I want to make sure that we give you some great information that you can take home or implement immediately, but always know that we are here for you guys. We're here to help grow, and we're here to find those gaps in your practice that you struggle with and you're needing support with. So I appreciate your time, and I will pass it back over to you, Adam.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Everyone attending tonight will receive the recording via email sometime in the next week. And if you're interested in attending future webinars, visit henryscheindental.com/webinars for our upcoming schedule. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great night.